Greetings and welcome to another radio adventure from Prescott, Arizona, the Mile High Cowboy City, and the Sharlot Hall Museum. It's another Arizona Roundup.
Welcome to Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook at Sharlot Hall Museum. Today, my special guest is Lisa Schnebly Heidinger, and we are talking between Prescott and Flagstaff. Are you in the valley today, Lisa?
I am right now, yeah. I'd rather be in Flagstaff, but that doesn't do anything.
Well, I will always think of you, Lisa, right now as being up in the pines of Flagstaff, Arizona, and with deep roots in our state of Arizona. And we just got reunited. We've had a friendship going back, I think, close to 35 plus years.
Isn't that scary? Yeah.
It sure is. And I think we first met at Channel 3, KTVK TV3, in the mid-1980s.
Actually, I didn't get there till 89. You started, I guess, with Dan Davis, mid-80s?
I did. I started in 1986. And and you started, it was an early 89 or late 88?
It was August 1st of 1989. I'll never forget it, when we opened the Northern Arizona Bureau for Channel 3 in Flagstaff. I love that you think I'm there, at the old Monte Vista. And it was the best 2 years, 2 months, and 11 days of my life up to that point.
Now, prior to that, Lisa, were you in TV news down in Phoenix or in Tucson?
Tucson, yes. I started as a cub reporter for the Green Valley News in print. And nowadays, I don't think you get to cross that line anymore. But I got a lucky break and ended up on Good Morning America for a live segment about the Pima County Victim Witness Program, and walked into the news director's office at Channel 9, where I'd applied endlessly, slapped down the tape and said, "If I can do live national news, I think I'm good enough to work for you." To which Doug Crombie said, "I'm going to hire you. And you know what? I just gave my 2 weeks notice and you'll be somebody else's problem." And I was. So I had a lot to learn, but after 6 years at KGUN, I got to make the move up to Northern Arizona. And it is my ancestral home and where I am always. Stuart, I think when you're within line of sight of the peaks, everything is intensified. If you're happy, you're ecstatic. If you're a little nostalgic, you're maudlin. I just think it turns everything up to 11 to be in that range.
Well, I'll tell you, every day when I drive home from work at Sharlot Hall Museum, coming down 69, I come around the corner. Every time I drive home, I look for the peaks, and I can tell what the weather is. I can tell if there's a fire. I can tell if there's rain coming, if there's snow on the peaks, and it's a great barometer of the day. And you are right. There is something special about seeing the San Francisco peaks, and they are comforting, and they are a landmark, and they're just something that you can kind of mark your day with, and the time and the season. And I really like the way you describe that, Lisa. It is something that unique about being living in Arizona, and you never lose the thrill when you rise that crest, when you drive up to Flagstaff and you can see them for the first time.
Absolutely. Yes. And I love that you get to see them every day.
Oh,
that's terrific.
And you could tell with these terrible fires up north that they're clouded in the smoke of the canyon.
Yeah. We were on the river. I got back a day before, week and a day ago. And so we missed the conflagration. We were there when I guess they were still calling it a controlled burn, but what a tragedy on so many levels.
It is a serious tragedy, and I've seen a lot of articles about it recently, and everyone's trying to make the best of it, knowing that fire and the Grand Canyon have a long relationship, and it's not the first time that the lodge has burned, but conversations I've had with those friends of mine here who love the North Rim and the Grand Canyon, you can't underestimate the landmark of the Grand Canyon Lodge as a world destination, not just an Arizona destination or a national landmark, but I would say truly loss, a cultural loss on a worldwide level.
I can see that. Yeah, to Arizonans, it would be akin maybe to Notre Dame. I mean, not to the rest of the world, but to us, because and that's the problem. We don't live on atomic time. We live on people time. And so 88 years is a long time in people time, and it's going to be a long time before it comes back. Whereas the larger canyon area has millions to, heal what happens.
That's right.
We're not going to be around to see that.
So speaking of growing up and landmarks that are important in our lives, did you grow up in northern Arizona, or was Tucson your home growing up?
Well, mostly Tucson. My dad was from Sedona. My mom was from Winslow. They meet in college at Flagstaff. And I was sick a lot. And they were at NAU from when I was 6 months to 3 and moved us to Tucson. And there they stayed. So when I was 30 and moved back to Flag, I had gotten back there in bits and pieces, a semester of school, different things. But it's home. It's home. Although the old Pueblo has a great deal to recommend it, and I would never talk it down. And I don't know, did you grow up in the Valley? I think of you as Northern Arizona, Prescott, Orem, but where were you?
Actually, I spent all of my summers, much of my summers growing up in Arizona, but because of my father's career as a writer in Los Angeles, I grew up in North Hollywood, California, and my mom was family moved to Phoenix after World War II, and my father was sent to Orem School in 1945 as a 9-year-old.
Oh my gosh, that's why I think of you up there.
Yeah, he was a boarding school student from 4th grade on, and when he came to Orem School in January 1945, there were about 12 students at the ranch school. It was only K through 8, and the one-room schoolhouse, and a 90-mile dirt road to Phoenix, and a equally windy dirt road to So old kind of that was his home, and except for a year and a half, he was raised and went to boarding school at Orem, where my mom was raised in Phoenix. And so I like to joke that my parents sent me east to find the west in Arizona, and that's the direction our station wagon went on most of the family vacations. 3, 4, 5 times a year. And we'd go to Phoenix. We would go to Tucson, where my mom went to school at U of A. We would go to, of course, up to Yavapai County at the Orem School and Prescott, and then Sedona, Flagstaff, and Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
So I was married with 2 children as an adult before I saw Yosemite, because Arizona was where we went for vacations.
I get it.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And you then have the same kinds of memories I do, where when we were kids, it rained every day in Flagstaff in July and August, at least for a little bit. But my age is showing. I mean, things change. Life changes.
That's right.
So I guess my dad always said that there'd never been a month of the year when he had not seen snow on the peaks. And I don't think that's true anymore. And I love knowing somebody who had that.
Right. And I think you're growing up in Tucson, you probably have some very good memories of snow on the peaks of the Catalinas.
So, yes, that was it. Yeah, the Catalinas deserve a lot more credit than I give them. In my world, they're just not the peaks, but they are lovely and majestic. And absolutely. My brother's favorite mountains. So there's enough to go around.
Most definitely. Well, Lisa, we're going to take a quick break and thank our sponsors. Then we're going to come back and talk a little bit about the road from Tucson to Flagstaff and back to Phoenix. We'll be right back with Lisa Schnebly Heidinger, and we're going to talk more about Arizona, the state that we call our home, and the importance of Sharlot Hall to that story.
At Foothills Bank, they're not just about banking. They're about people, community, and building futures. Whether you're managing personal finances, growing your business, planning for retirement, or buying your dream home, their friendly team is there to guide you every step of the way. Stop by your local Foothills Bank today. It's more than just banking. It's a partnership for success. Foothills Bank is a division of Glacier Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Welcome back to Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook and my special guest, Lisa Schnebly Heidinger. And we are talking today about Arizona, Sharlot Hall, our love for the Grand Canyon State, and all of the beauty that it shares with us and with the world. Lisa, we were talking before the break a little bit about where we grew up and where we're at today. And your family, your father, was he raised in the Sedona area?
Primarily, his grandma and grandpa were Sedona and T.C. Schnebly, who came out from Missouri in 1901. And his dad taught school, Larry, my dad's whole life. So generally, their permanent address was Sedona, and that's where they spent summers. And winters, school sessions could be Chambers, Dennehotso, Wilcox, I think Prescott for a while. Ellsworth just bounced around a lot. Parks, he taught in Parks. So, but I remember my dad spending a year with Grandma and Grandpa down in Sedona when one of his little cousins was living with them. And I think Sedona is the home of his heart. And I remember at a kind of an early age being impressed that he knew where the switchbacks were going. For years, I would drive it thinking, I don't know, there's a turn. And to him, that was his neighborhood. He, that was just imprinted on his brain. So yeah, that was certainly always home, and the little stone house by the creek that my granddad built and all. Yeah.
So is it your grandparents or your great-grandparents that brought the name Sedona? Your great-grandparents.
Yeah. Because then when I named my daughter Sedona, Larry, my dad, spent the rest of his life telling everybody he met that he was the only person in the world who was Sedona's grandson and Sedona's grandfather.
And so you at one point did a deep dive into your family history and have written at least one book on Sedona and her life?
Yes, the one. I interviewed her daughter, Clara, when I was only 24 because I thought, I'm going to want to know this someday. I had no idea at the time, Stuart, I could ever be a writer, but kept the notes and added, and the family began to say, oh, Lisa's the historian, and everything would come in. And finally, I wrote it in 2016. It came out in 2017. And I was honestly relieved because I woke up the next morning and thought, if I'm hit by a bus, that all exists in one place. And to get the number of sources and, new material and interviews and everything in one place really, really did kind of weigh on me. And I was glad when it finally came out. And I don't know if you remember before the web when people would say, oh, Sedona's Indian word. Sedona is anode spelled backwards. Sedona is this.
Right.
I love that all the stuff that we know is true is in one place. And nobody ever has to wonder. Now, we can't know her thoughts. I had to do my own work on that. But the facts are there. And it's nice to have been of use to the future, if I could be that grandiose. At least people could look at it if they wanted to.
Now, can people... it's Sedona. Is it the University of Arizona? Who is your publisher?
No, Amazon is my publisher on that one. And it is on Amazon. It's the Journal of Sedona Schnebly. And Stuart, I did that because I think there are 12 books out now. And every time somebody publishes a book, they do something that gives you a heartburn. And I had worked so long on this one, and I had the photographs I wanted, and I thought, I'm not letting anybody ruin this for me.
Well, good for you.
My book. And I'm glad I did. I really am.
And that's, just think of our journey as journalists and as writers and historians for the last 35 or 40 plus years, from an era in which if you were going to publish a book like your book on Sedona, you would have had to find a publisher to be able to self-publish and then make it available through such a platform of Amazon is truly as remarkable as any revolution in communications.
I would agree. And I'm told that 9,000 books are published daily in the world because so many people can self-publish. So I think like YouTube launched Bo Burnham as a comedian when he was 16, that in a way self-publishing and YouTube are very democratic and the talent rises. And some of it doesn't. But at least everyone has the option of putting their work out there. And I love that about it.
Right. Gutenberg would be amazed.
I guess so. I hadn't thought.
So how long were you in the television news business? We know you started in print journalism. Were you a University of Arizona graduate, or did you go to...
I was. Finally, many years after I started at the Green Valley News. It took me forever to get that damn degree. And actually, Governor Evan Meekum signed my diploma, which at the time disappointed me, but now is kind of a curiosity. So graduated high school 74, graduated college 87. But by then, I'd been in TV for 4 years. So I was there 83 to 91, and then quit because I wanted a family, and I couldn't do the Northern Arizona Bureau and have a family. Tom, as you know, my husband was our satellite truck guy.
Right.
And we would be in Holbrook for a jailbreak, and they'd say, "You're doing it at 10." And I'd look at him and say, "So if we had kids, where would they be right now?" And it became clear one of us needed to make a change. So I wanted to write, and it worked out seamlessly. And I've been writing ever since.
Well, you're a natural, Lisa, and we are glad to have you as a chronicler of the history of Arizona. And most recently, you've started a podcast which allows you to reach people, well beyond the print media of the Green Valley newspaper, or even your days at KGUN or at KTVK. And
isn't it a wonderful, wonderful thing? I mean, you think about town criers and then bards traveling to various castles, and then the penny whistle press, and then the printing press. And I think that storytelling and chronicling is one of the ancient professions, like doctor and innkeeper and baker. And you and I are on the cusp, threshold, whatever, of the newest form of doing that.
I agree. And I've heard recently that right now there are more listeners to podcasts than there are listeners to traditional radio. And it's really becoming, like the videos you see on YouTube or all the different new mediums. We are really in a revolutionary, and I think you said it earlier, there is a form of democracy occurring in this revolution of communications, and podcasts are a great way to reach an audience and tell stories and bring good news to people around the world.
Yeah. Go us.
So tell me a little bit about your podcast and when you started it and its format.
It's Celebrating Arizona. And I was told recently that, and both you and I are doing this perfectly, because there's an international audience hungry for specific things, the niche podcasts do better. They don't want funny stories. They want, I'm interested in Arizona. I'm interested in Arizona history. I'm interested in, and so we're lucky to be in kind of the hot place right now. And I had collected, as you have, so many stories over years of writing and broadcasting and traveling, and had been thinking about a podcast. My brother had started one that had done very well. And so Julie Morrison and I were lucky enough to get UA Press to publish Arizona Friend Trips, stories from the road, and started saying, well, let's just keep doing this. And she was very reluctant. She was not from broadcasting, and said, I don't know how. And I said, look, you're a natural. We've talked virtually every day on the phone for 6 years. It's just like that, only Tom is going to be recording us. Do 5. Just do 5 with me, and if you don't like it, I'll never bother you again. And thank God she loved it. Because to me, the good podcast is when you feel like you're sitting in the next booth overhearing people talking.
Most definitely.
And so I think we got that part nailed. And each of us brings a story each week. We don't know what the other one's going to be up to. And then we ask a question that we hope listeners will also write in. And then we share something that we've written. And there's a coffee mug of the day, because my collection is way too big. And I thought, well, at least I can put it to good use. So every week, the podcast picture is one of the coffee mugs. And as you know, because you're on the inside, we are now the podcast partner for AZ250, the semi-quincentennial of the United States. And that's exciting to me. I love that.
Oh, I think that's fantastic. And I think that's a good segue for us. We're going to take another break, and we're going to come back and talk about AZ250, Arizona Friend Trips, your podcast celebrating Arizona. And I think we should touch a little bit about some of our personal road trip memories of the North Rim of the Grand Canyon. So we'll be right back on Arizona Roundup.
Life is full of moments we want to cherish forever. But when the unexpected happens, having compassionate guidance makes all the difference. For over 120 years, Ruffner Wakeland Funeral Homes and Crematory has been helping families in Prescott and Central Arizona honor their loved ones with care and dignity. At Ruffner Wakeland, they believe every life deserves a unique celebration. From personalized ceremonies to heartfelt support, we're here to guide you every step of the way. Ruffner Wakeland Funeral Home, here for you at your time of need. Visit ruffnerwakeland.com for more information.
Welcome back to Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook at Sharlot Hall Museum, and my special guest today is Lisa Schnebly Heidinger, and we are talking today about Arizona and its grand history, and Lisa was just telling us before the break about her podcast, Celebrating Arizona, which is the official AZ250 podcast, and I can't think of a better person to help promote not only our state's history, our state's heritage, but the big celebration coming up next year, AZ250. Tell me a little bit about that, Lisa.
Very kind of you. Yes, and I had to learn the word semi-quincentennial.
Say it better than I can.
Okay, let's see. Half of 500. Okay. But that Arizona was here. And I don't remember if you and I don't think we've ever talked about this, but I remember finding out for a special on the Arizona Trail at Kegun that the King of Spain had tapped residents of what is now Arizona to raise money for the Revolutionary War, because I guess he had some interest in the outcome of that.
Oh, yeah.
And the Presidio of Tucson, I believe, sent 46 pesos, which would have bought 8 boroughs at the time. Are you better at that fact than I am?
No, that's a new story I just learned recently, and it didn't surprise me because if England was on the ropes, anybody who was a rival of Great Britain in the New World would definitely want to take advantage of it and see them lose a foothold in the New World, because, as you know, the Spanish were wary of everybody, and the British had been a thorn in their side in the New World for a long time.
Yeah, that makes such sense. See, I hadn't gone there, but of course, yeah. So the fact that Arizona, I was taught as a proud Arizona's public school product, history started in the East in 1776 and moved here. And I will give you just 2 quick facts about Arizona that I feel like every school child should be taught. One, that the Beale Wagon Road across southern Arizona was guided...
northern Arizona.
I'm sorry, Beale?
Beale's northern Arizona.
Okay, then what is the southern?
Southern Arizona would have been Philip St. George Cook.
Yes, that's who it was. It was Philip St. George.
Mormon Battalion.
Yes, exactly. And do you know who their guide was?
I can't recall.
Sacagawea's son.
Well, how about that?
Yeah, Jean-Pierre Charbonneau.
That's a great story.
Shouldn't every 4th grader know that?
I think so. I think they should.
Too. Well, everybody who's listening, grab a 4th grader. Tell them.
Well, and Edward Beale was a peer of Kit Carson's and is the overlooked hero of that era. He was an incredible trailblazer and map maker, and helped lead the Camel Corps across northern Arizona and helped chart what becomes Beale's Wagon Road across northern Arizona, connecting California, Central California and Southern California with the rest of the country, which of course becomes eventually the route of the Santa Fe Railroad, and then Route 66 and Interstate 40.
Yeah. Now, see, I didn't know about Beale. That's a gap in my knowledge. Good for you.
Beale is a fascinating story. And then right after the Civil War, they send out another set of surveyors, including Timothy O'Sullivan, who takes some of the first remarkable photographs of the San Francisco peaks, and then later of Zuni. And I did my thesis on the history of the Black Canyon Highway, so I'm kind of a nerd for trails and highways and highway history and transportation history in Arizona. So the working at Arizona Highways magazine from '93 to 2000, it was like a a pig in mud because I love the story of trails. And we were talking earlier today about the importance of celebrating Route 66, but also of the trail and route history of our state. Just as we were talking about Philip St. George Cook, the trail that he broke across southern Arizona followed some of what you would call the Gila Trail or the Spanish Trail across southern Arizona. And I-8 follows much of...
for crying out loud.
So, you would come north out of Tucson following the Santa Cruz River, and not to get into the weeds here, but then there's the 40-mile desert. You have to leave your Maricopa Wells and go 40 miles across the desert to Gila Bend. That was the next water.
And what did they cover? Like 8 miles a day on those wagon trains?
That's right. And when you travel across Arizona and you look for communities, you usually will find, the route follows water, right? We're in a desert state. And you can go, I think probably most people travel 6 to 8 miles before you or your animals need water. And so follow the old trails, you'll always find you'll find in many routes, including the old Black Canyon Trail from the Prescott area down to the valley, you usually will find some remnants of ancient, pre-Columbian habitation as well as springs. And so there's a lot
I bet you know where White Spar is. Do you know where White Spar is?
The White Spar Road, the 89 from Congress to Prescott. It's the old nickname. Yeah, of course.
My dad always used to wax nostalgic about when they would go from Oak Creek down to Phoenix, and that you'd always have at least one flat tire on every trip. And he would say, Prescott, Yarnell, White Spar, something. And it never occurred to me to say, where's that? And you just told me. I'm grateful to you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah, the White Spar, the nickname for 89 between Congress and Prescott. And that, of course, Arizona was very slow to pave a lot of its roads. And when we're talking about Route 66 and our AZ 250, Grace Sparks, who was a peer, a little bit younger, but a peer of Sharlot Hall's here in Prescott, she, in the early 1913, 1914, she started to see the future. She could envision that highways and good highways were going to be the future of the state. And when they were proposing the new U.S. highway system, she fought for 89 to come up through from Wickenburg, connect down to what would become US 60, come up Congress, the White Spar, up through Yarnell to Prescott, and then north connecting Prescott to Ash Fork and Route 66. Wow. And she then went over to Ehrenberg and she said, I'm going to fight for this road if you're with me, and we'll get a bridge here. So the first, the second bridge.
And a woman at that time.
Oh, yeah. She was formidable. And we should do another podcast just about Grace Sparks and other great women who helped shape the state of Arizona.
Wow. And you've got so many in Prescott.
It's remarkable. And where I was just talking with someone just a couple of days ago about the opportunity that women had in Arizona territory and as a young state, that the population was small and the state attracted a lot of strong-willed, educated women who seized the opportunity to become civic leaders and to help build a state. And we were one of the first states to give women the vote. And
that's right.
I think it's part of the DNA of Arizona that we at Sharlot Hall Museum like to tell and like to remind people of the audaciousness of those women, including our namesake Sharlot Hall.
Yeah, I have written that I concluded at some point that in Arizona, femininity is not judged by fragility, but by fierceness.
I think that's a great statement. I would have to agree with that. And your family, Sedona, she had to be quite a woman herself to have moved from relatively settled Missouri to the unsettled Oak Creek Canyon, or lightly settled Oak Creek Canyon. I know that farmers and ranchers and entrepreneurs who come into the Oak Creek area starting in the late 1860s, early 1870s, seeing the beauty of the canyon and the water to create. And was your family, were they farmers?
TC was what my dad called a scrabbler. So he did everything. He planted seedlings, fruit trees, and would take all the fruits up to Splag to sell them. And then got in touch with George Babbitt. Hey, if you'll match my money, we'll build a road. Schnebly Hill Road. Was in charge of the voting in the area, got the first telegraph. He just saw things that needed doing and did them, and died with virtually nothing. His entire estate came in at less than $300 in 1953. But I kind of love that about him, because he was about, I wrote one time, TC measured life in conversations, not dollars. He met people, introduced them to the area, shared his love of the area with them. And as long as his wife was happy, he was happy. They were married more than 50 years.
That is a remarkable story. And is Sedona obviously going to be part of the, do you know, is Sedona planning to be part of AC 250?
I don't have a big answer for that. I know that I'm giving a library speech up there at the end of August, and I know that we'll be talking about it, but I have not circled back to city leaders to find out. Fortunately, my daughter Sedona is, I think, the newest member of the Sedona Historical Society Museum. She's on their executive board now.
Fantastic.
So I know a guy. I can make sure we get something working on that.
Well, I think that, and you know, one of our director of development at Sharlot Hall Museum, Sally Jackson, the Sedona Historical Society Museum is housed in her grandparents' home there in Sedona.
The Jordan? She was a Jordan?
That's correct.
Oh, was she Helen or Ruth? Do you know? Line.
I don't know.
Okay, the Jordan brothers, George and Will, one was married to Helen, one was married to Ruth, because Sedona Schnebly helped raise Ruth's kids in that building. And you need to connect us. We will have a visit.
We'll have to get Sally on the phone and have a conversation about her family life story.
Yes.
And the connections with the Sedona and the Schneblys.
That would be wonderful.
All right, well, we're going to take one more break here, and we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about AC 250, Prescott, and some of Lisa's favorite Arizonans, Bucky and Pauline O'Neill, and Sharlot Hall.
Are you looking for a fun, educational outing? Sharlot Hall Museum isn't just a history display. No way. It's a real experience, from the Prescott Indian Arts Market to Charlotte's Cellar, living history adventures, author presentations, and a lecture series for those of you who take some things quite seriously. That's right, there's something for everyone. So uncover the past and create new memories, and maybe have some good ideas for the future. Do it today. Visit charlottehallmuseum.org to see our full event lineup. And we hope you'll come, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Welcome back to Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook at Sharlot Hall Museum. And my special guest today is Lisa Schnebly Heidinger, and we've been having a fantastic conversation about Arizona, growing up in love with the Grand Canyon State, our life in journalism, and some of our favorite Arizonans. And Lisa, before we started the show, you talked a little bit about your passion for Sharlot Hall and her life story, as well as Bucky and Pauline O'Neill.
Yes,
Tell me,
they are such compelling characters. Sharlot, I just said this on our podcast the other day. One of the things I admire about her, first of all, being the first female historian when women were not in office of any type, and her realization that, my dad had a quote one time, journalism is history on the fly. And Sharlot knew that she was in history, and she interviewed people around her. History wasn't just the past to Sharlot Hall. She was capturing her present for posterity. And I admired the heck out of that that awareness. And her independence, going off through northern Arizona on the strip with just a male guide for 2 weeks at a time, and not letting what people said deter her from what she wanted to do. Just a fascinating woman. And I hope you probably know buckets more about her than I do, but that she had at least a close relationship with the Free Thinkers founder, an older gentleman, her whole life. I would love to feel like she experienced a great love, but I've never found that. And I think in those days, if she had, she wouldn't be talking about it. But independent and amazing and eloquent, she had it all going on.
She really did. And I like, the more I get to know about Sharlot Hall, I like to describe her as the Laura Ingalls of Arizona.
Oh, perfect.
And a little bit like yourself, she started journaling as a young girl. She was a great observer of life. And she, growing up in Kansas, and her notes and her diaries, we recently republished her biography by Margaret Maxwell, and we have it for sale at Sharlot Hall Museum's bookstore. She was a great observer from a very young age, and she brought that to her daily life, as you say, and to her interest in living and living her life to the fullest. And as territorial historian, she, only had a couple of years in the office, but what she did is she took advantage of those 2 years, and shouted from the rooftops to make sure that the rest of the growing nation knew that Arizona should be its own state and not conjoin with New Mexico.
Yes, and speaking of that, can I read you my very favorite quotes from her?
I would love to hear you read some of
Charlotte's
part of Charlotte's poetry.
So part of that effort was having someone put on the desk of every single congressman, and they were all men at the time, the poem she wrote called Arizona, advocating for our separate statehood. And it goes on and on and on and on. But the verse that I thought, boy, you didn't pull any punches, goes, quote, "But while ye follow your smooth-made roads, to a fireside safe of fears, shall come a voice from a land still young to sing in your age-dulled ears."
She pulled no punches.
She pulled no punches. And then got to go to that inauguration and wear the famous copper mesh tunic and the cactus hat, which is so much lovelier than it sounds. So that's one of my two favorites. And then the one that I memorized, because I never wanted to be without it, was lifted from a letter that she wrote to Tim Reardon, as in Reardon Mansion. They were correspondents. And every time I read it, I just think, yes, yes. So it is, I'm so glad, so glad, so glad that God let me be an outdoor woman and love the big things. I couldn't be a tame house cat woman and spend big, sunny, glorious days giving card parties and planning dresses. I'm not unwomanly. Don't you dare to think so. But God meant woman to joy in his great, clean, beautiful world. And I thank him that he lets me see some of it, not through a window pane.
That is beautiful and remarkable and timeless.
Oh, yes, all of the above. Just amazing.
Well, we are fortunate to be able to be in this business and be able to promote these heroes and heroines of the Grand Canyon State. And we try to do so every day at Sharlot Hall Museum. And two of those that probably get a lot of attention, but probably aren't as well known as they should be, were a couple that Sharlot would have known herself. And that's Bucky and Pauline O'Neill. And,
yes.
Bucky, of course, is memorialized in the Rough Rider statue in the Courthouse Plaza of Yavapai County in downtown Prescott. But with all the adulage that he receives as a hero and a stand-up citizen of Arizona Territory and Prescott, we don't hear as much about his wife, Pauline. But she was a remarkable woman in her own case. Can you tell us a little bit about Pauline?
I've been fascinated by them for years. And quickly, I think Bucky was Arizona's Forrest Gump. I mean, working for a paper in Tombstone, being a judge in Prescott, mining at the Canyon, being on a posse out at Canyon Diablo by Winslow. It's like anything that happened, Bucky was there. and then to die at a very young age in the Rough Riders. But Pauline did so much for helping the suffrage movement. And as you mentioned, Arizona was early in giving us the vote, and great friends with Frances Munns, who was one of the first 2 elected legislators that were women in Arizona, and the 2 of them working on that together. I was down at the state capitol one day, Stuart, and I came across a night letter, the copy of a telegram. A night letter is so romantic, but it just means it was cheaper to send them at night. But it was addressed by Brady O'Neill, which led me down a rabbit hole of discovery that after Bucky died, Pauline married Brady, who was 10 years younger than Bucky. So she was married to both brothers. And he also worked very hard on Arizona becoming a state. So the 3 of them are this fascinating, enigmatic, intriguing, puzzling set of characters in Arizona's history that I still want to learn more about. You may have read when Bucky married her, and he had a column, I think he was editor of the Prescott paper, and used 19 adjectives to describe marriage. Have you ever seen that?
No, but I'm going to look it up.
Okay. Yeah, I have it if you want it. Do we have time?
Well, sure. Why not? Let's share it with our audience. That would be great.
Okay. Sensations, describe them, impossible. Elysian, enchanting, divine, glorious, aesthetic, intense, entrancing, captivating, inspiring, ecstatic, seraphic, absorbing, engrossing, engulfing, monopolizing, engaging, attractive, magnetic. The vocabulary fails us. And I think, no, it didn't. But I think he burned brighter than most people. And at the end of his life, Brady O'Neill ended his own life. He was getting ill, and Pauline was in the legislature, and he was with a niece in California. And I've always felt, and maybe this is a second child talking, that it had to be difficult to be Brady, because I think you would feel like your name was not Bucky O'Neill.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think there's a lot. That's definitely a very poignant piece of Arizona history, and I think that Pauline is one of those Arizona women who needs a little bit more attention for us to understand our origins as a young state, and what it took for us to move from being a territory to become a state in 1912. And it took strong women like her.
Yeah, and I've never found a conversation between she and Sharlot, but considering Sharlot's poem and Pauline's advocacy, they must have recognized each other as part of the solution and a sister from another mother. Wouldn't you think?
I would think so. And I would invite you down to the Sharlot Hall Museum's archives and library to see if we can find some of the connections between Pauline and Sharlot.
Oh my gosh, I'm coming. That would be marvelous. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Well, let's end the show with just a little memory from the Arizona Road. Tell me, Lisa, what is your first memory of the north rim of the Grand Canyon?
Oh, okay. I was getting scared, but that one I can actually do. I was with my dad and working on a book called Chief Yellow Horse Lives On, 2002. So the kids were 9 and 7, and we took them to the North Rim and stayed in one of the historic cabins, and they rubbed Bridie's nose in the lodge, and we had dinner in the lodge. I think it was my birthday, and it was just a beautiful exposure to the part of the canyon that only 10% of the visitors see. What about you? Do you remember?
I do. The first time I went to the North Rim was in the summer of 1979, and I was a camper. I was 16. I was a camper at the Quarter Circle V-Bar Ranch Camp of the Orem School. And for 2 weeks, about 200 of us crowded into cattle trucks, stake bed cattle trucks, outfitted like Army trucks with tarps and all our grub boxes and gear boxes. We would all sit in the back of the trucks, and we were, the trip was a Northern Arizona, Utah parks trip. And for 14 days, we camped across Northern Arizona and Southern Utah. And the last big 3 days of the trip before our final night down in Arizona, in Southern Arizona, a little further south in Arizona, on the rim, we went out to Saddle Mountain, out of the national forest, and then we would we camped in a cloud. It was rainy. It was early August, and we camped in a cloud, and we would then take side trips over to the Grand Canyon Lodge in the North Rim, and you could go for a hike or hike along the rim, explore the Grand Canyon Lodge and the rim. And I think I counted up with this news of the Grand Canyon Lodge burning so sadly this past week. I think I've been to the North Rim 4 times, and each time, of course, is a distinct memory. But that first time is so remarkable because you're there in this group and you're camping and you're a part of nature all day, you know, cooking meals together and then going and exploring the North Rim in this extended group of camp counselors and campers.
That sounds idyllic. I mean, if every young person could have had that Tom Sawyer-esque experience.
I was very fortunate, and it was an era that can't be repeated, as the Orms were very audacious in how they saw the Southwest as an open and living laboratory. And for many decades, those caravans traveled across the Southwest for 2 weeks at a time, both the school and the camp. And I'm just fortunate that been to the North Rim, and I'm looking forward to my next trip back and watching the Phoenix rise over the rim there, and the return of the Grand Canyon Lodge.
Boy, here's hoping, huh?
I believe it's going to happen, and I think that it's not. We will all realize that this isn't just an Arizona landmark or a park landmark, but the Grand Canyon Lodge was one of those open doors that welcomed millions from around the world to our great state.
That's an excellent point, because I've been hearing, well, it's about the funding, but remember when Notre Dame burned and donations poured in from around the world?
That's exactly right.
The state is purposeful enough and strategic enough to invite everybody to help rebuild the North Rim. You're brilliant. Well, I think you just solved that.
Well, I think that should be a cause that we continue to promote, and maybe we can be part of something greater and grand and help bring the Grand Canyon Lodge back to the world.
I love that.
Well, Lisa, this has been a great afternoon on Arizona Roundup, and I look forward to you being a guest sometime in the very near future. And I look forward to being on your show here in just a few weeks myself.
I was just going to say, and I get to reciprocate. Now you can come to dinner.
All right.
This has been a delight. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for listening here this week on Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook at Sharlot Hall Museum.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Lisa. And thank you for being a part of Arizona Roundup, right from the Sharlot Hall Museum in Prescott, Arizona, as they say, the mile-high cowboy city and everybody's favorite hometown. Lots of stories, nostalgia, and, of course, a little bit of sadness once we think about what happened on the North Rim. But we will overcome. That is truly the cowboy spirit. Hey, we welcome you to Prescott, Arizona, and the wonderful people there and the fine businesses that will serve you. And, of course, stop in at the Sharlot Hall Museum and join with all of the people there who enjoy being there and showing you a little bit of what it's all about right here in the Arizona Roundup Cowboy Adventure. So, from the good folks there, Stuart Rosebrook and all of his friends and people there, say thank you very much, and we hope that we'll see you soon at the Sharlot Hall Museum. Remember, charlottehallmuseum.org, charlottehallmuseum.org.